I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
Like, just calm down, folks. Just calm down. All right. Well, we knew this day was going to come this season, but this is going to be the last Best Boys Center Ice podcast Stanley Cup playoff / finals wrap-up show as the Florida Panthers win their second straight Stanley Cup by beating the Edmonton Oilers tonight 5-1 and winning the series 4-2 in second year in a row. Florida's won the Cup on home ice. Before we get into everything, I know Carson's going to start things off. We want to thank everybody for supporting the Best Boys Center Ice podcast all season long. In our second season, first full season, because we started halfway through last season.
Yes.
We're not quite halfway, a little bit less than that, a little bit more than half.
December.
We love to thank everybody for their constant support, our family, friends, also the support of the Refocused Radio Network. With Shemaiah Reeds, he's the leader of us and the network, and we've been so thankful to be on his network this year, along with himself and the I Am Refocused Radio show and podcast, and Rudy Campos Jr., a really good friend of ours, for Sweep the League. Again, we're on the network. The YouTube channel is on the network. You can go back and watch all of the wrap-up shows. You can watch the podcasts from earlier this year. The podcasts are also available on Spreaker.com. But Carson, we always say that the doesn't matter who is the champion. Seeing the trophy presentation is one of the greatest things in sports. It just seems to be a lot more, I don't know, meaningful or just more traditional than.
Yeah, I think it's traditional.
The Super Bowl, the World Series, and the NBA championship gets presented to the owner of the team, or the Stanley Cup gets presented to the captain of the team, which is the way it should be, and they hand it around. I think the tradition of skating the Stanley Cup around is one of the best things you could ever see. The picture at the end, which was actually started by the Edmonton Oilers in the 80s. I think in 88 they were the first team to have a picture taken on ice with the whole players. But I'm going to let you go start because I'll come in afterwards. But what did you think of not only this game, because it was all Florida, but the series and the playoffs as a whole?
Yeah, well, okay. As you see on there, Panthers win the Stanley Cup. Second, it's deja vu. Basically, same exact team they beat. Took one less game this time. The better team won.
Yeah,
I don't think that's a doubt. The better team won the series. The Panthers were the better team. No matter how you look at it, they were better. And pretty much every facet of the game, this series, they deserved it. Crazy to think how many guys they lost after last year's championship, and they retooled the team the right way to become a champion. If you would have told me last year that Brad Marchand and Matthew Tkachuk are winning a Stanley Cup together, I would have probably thrown up. But they did. And Brad Marchand won the Stanley Cup back in his rookie season when the Bruins beat Vancouver in 2011. And until then, he had been in the finals 2 other times besides that and lost both of them. And it's good for him to get back on the board with another cup. Mid-season acquisition, probably one of the best mid-season acquisitions by a team ever. in the history.
Surprising, and one of the more surprising ones too.
He was honestly my pick to win the Conn Smythe with how well he played, but Bennett deserved it as well. Sam Bennett wins Conn Smythe, led the season led the postseason in goal scoring with 15. He deserved it, but Marshy was my pick just based upon how impactful he was. But so, you know, lots to unpack here with how crazy this series was. But as it got further along, the Panthers just pulled away bit by bit. And I'm going to read a quote from one of our listeners who texted me after the game. Hopefully, my video will be off, but hopefully my audio works. So I'll let you know, or let me know if you can hear me in a second. Let's see. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you.
All right. This is a quote from one of our listeners who texted me after this game. They said about Florida Panthers. Clearly, they were the stronger team. They were more organized and more focused. They were more dedicated to their well-executed game plan, and they forced the Oilers to play their game, and it resulted in the Stanley Cup. And this is 100% true. Want to thank, I'll go ahead and shout out the listener, aka my mother. She texted me after the game, and I definitely agree with all that she said there, because the Panthers had such a great game plan and it worked. Bits of this series were very surprising. Obviously, game threes, whatever you want to call that, was not expected, and it had happened. But McDavid and Draisaitl, other than the beginning of the series, were shut down, and that's the big reason the Oilers didn't win. Um, I'm not an Oilers fan; I'm a Penguins fan, but obviously I watch the games because of you and other family. But I think that's a bit of a concern if you look at it that way. That if the Draisaitl and McDavid aren't playing good, the Oilers won't win. And as simple as that. And the other way around, the Panthers can win if their big guys aren't doing well. Barkov didn't really have much of an impact on this series, and it didn't matter. And other guys stepped in. Marchand was the best player in this series, in my opinion, and that's the third liner. Even their fourth liner guys like Gadget held it down. And they deserve it. Obviously, there's going to be change for them in the offseason because Sam Bennett's going to have to re-sign. Who knows if he'll stay. Marchand's going to have a deal upcoming soon. I don't know what's going to happen with the Panthers, but I mean, after what they did this year, I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to retool and go back and win again. So good for them. They deserve it. Their fan base deserves it. The Stanley Cup seems to be popular in the state of Florida nowadays, as 4 of the last 6 champions have been from Florida, and the last 6 Eastern Conference champions have been from the state of Florida. Okay, so where do you go from here if you're Edmonton? Florida, obviously, not worried about that for them. They are a very good team, and they're going to be good for a while. But Edmonton, I mentioned my concerns with this, that if they lost, should McDavid go somewhere else? And I'll stick by the fact that I think that he probably should. I think the way that the Oilers are constructed, they have to have McDavid and Draisaitl doing most of the work, and that's not how you're going to win in this league. It's proven many times. You look at the different Stanley Cup champions in the recent past, that it's not just been their number one, number two. It's been everybody. The unlikely St. Louis Blues championships, all of their lines 1 through 4, defensive pairs 1 through 3, the surprising outbursts of Jordan Binnington won them that Stanley Cup. The Chicago Blackhawks dynasty, I want to call them pretty close in the 2010s. Besides Canes and Taves, had other guys like Duncan Keith, Brent Seabrook, Corey Crawford, legendary goaltender, stepping in there, and obviously helped. Patrick Kane and Taves were in the primes back then and playing really well. Even the Penguin teams, I've gotten lucky to watch them win a couple times. Besides Sid and Gino, the legendary HBK line, the third line, that was the best line of that whole team for those 2 Stanley Cup runs. But it just seems to not translate for the Oilers right now with the group they have as far as depth. Obviously, another thing you mentioned in a group text earlier, the Oilers cannot win with mediocre goaltending, and no team can. And that's what they're getting right now is mediocre goaltending. Stu's not going to play in Edmonton again. I would be shocked if he does. The Oilers need to go out and get a goaltender, a top goaltender, and that's a big problem. I mean, Sergei Bobrovsky is a top goaltender in the NHL, and that's why he's winning the Stanley Cup. But you can't win with mediocre goaltending. You have to win with every guy contributing all they can. And, guys that I thought could make a difference in this series really didn't. Evander Kane hurt the series more than he helped it. I thought he was
Mhm.
going to be a big, and
He needs to go too. He needs to go too,
yeah,
in my opinion.
and I'll touch on this for a second. You probably will too. I'm very disappointed in him for not coming out on the ice after that
Mhm.
game to shake hands with the Panthers. He did not come out on the ice after he was ejected in the last 2 minutes for a bad slash on Matthew Tkachuk. He didn't come out to shake their hands. I get it, you're ejected, but you're able to come out on the ice and shake the hands at the end of the game, and he didn't do it. But yeah, you know, obviously, unfortunate streak continues for Corey Perry. 5 out of the last 6 Stanley Cup Finals he's been a part of, and he's lost all of them. But I just think the way that they go about it right now, the Oilers won't win until they. I don't want to compare them to the Leafs, but until they change the identity of those two guys,
Mhm.
to it being the Edmonton Oilers, the team, not the McDrysidles. It's not going to work. It's just not. I mean, this league is these teams are so good that they're able to wear you down, and the Panthers figured out how to stop them. And once they figure out how to stop those two, it's not. The Oilers just prove it's not possible for them right
Mhm.
now. So, faces are going to look different next season for them. Team identity hopefully looks different. Goaltenders look different. Lovelock is still, I think, the answer for that team. He's a calm, cool, and collected spirit. But I think also they need him to be a bit more fired up. I've seen him. I think he's just a bit too calm sometimes, and I think sometimes you need the craziness of Paul Maurice where he gets pissed off and he's yelling at the referees and he's going crazy behind the bench. And I think Knobloch's sometimes just a bit too calm, cool, and collected. And obviously not to throw all the blame on him, but Stu just too inconsistent. I mean, one game he's Vesna, against the Stars, he played so well, and then he came to this series, and you're still playing a really good team, but he had some softies. Obviously, he's gonna forever want that third goal back tonight because that was a disaster. Flip in from the point, and he should have caught that puck and held it, and he just
Yeah.
bounced it off himself and right to the last guy you probably want to give it to is Reinhardt. So yeah, I'm disappointed. I thought the Oilers could do it, and I said it this earlier on. They look worse this year than last year. This Cup team, I think they, obviously it sucks they didn't have Hyman, but even with him in it, I still don't know if that makes that big of a difference because the Oilers, just from top to bottom, in my opinion, got outmatched, outclassed in every facet of the game, and it's unfortunate. I wanted to see another game in Edmonton, but wasn't in the cards. And it's hard to go back to the finals. That's the only
Mhm.
tough thing about it. On the Oilers side of this, as a fan, player, coach, ownership, it's hard to make the finals and at any point, but much less twice in a row. It's unprecedented. The Panthers 3 times in a row, the Oilers twice in a row. It doesn't happen that
Mhm.
much. This is the first repeat Stanley Cup final, and I don't even know how long. I wasn't around when that happened. Well, I guess Detroit, sorry, was the last time that happened. But it's not. It's rare. It's very rare, and it's going to be a hard conference to win. And the West is a harder conference out of the two. You got teams like Dallas, even Winnipeg, that can do something. St. Louis. There's just so many good teams. Colorado. But yeah, I wanted Oilers to get it done, see McDavid hoist it, but it wasn't time, and it may not be the place for him to win. It may be the place for him to win, who knows? But there's a lot that can happen this offseason, and I think there is a bit of concern if you're an Oiler fan. But before I give it to Dad, again, like it says in the top right, I want to say thank you to everybody who's watched our show, shared our show, liked it, commented, whatever. We appreciate it. We do this for fun. Obviously, it's great to get support, but we do it because we love the game. We're passionate about the game and our teams. And it's fun to get the engagement. But we'll kind of close that out later on. But we'll get on to you now. You're the Oiler fan here.
Mhm.
Give your thoughts on the series, the game, whatever you feel, just overall about it.
Well, we'll start with it's disappointing. It's terribly disappointing. I remember this feeling in 1994 when the Oilers lost to the Islanders in their first trip to the
84.
Stanley Cup in '84. That was terribly disappointing, and I was only like 11 or 12
You're a
or
kid.
something like that, and I was a kid, and I was terribly disappointed. And then the Oilers came back and they won back to back and lost one, and then they got back to back again, and they won in '90 without Gretzky in the lineup because that's after the trade happened to LA. So I got to see the 5 Stanley Cups that were won within that
Yes.
7-year period, which was great. And
One
then
of the best teams of all time, by the way, for
one of the
sure. That
best
era of the
teams.
Oilers. To get it done without Gretzky is impressive.
Yeah,
Like you have to think about it.
It was Messier, Curry, Anderson, Kevin Lowe, Billy Ranford was the goaltender. I think Grant Fuhr
I think
was the
that can be forgotten sometimes. Gretzky wasn't there.
Gretzky wasn't there in '90. He was
No,
2
in
years
LA.
in LA, and Edmonton beat LA that year to get through into the
Finals.
playoffs. And then you go down the road of you make the playoffs and then you don't do so well, and then you start not making the playoffs and rebuilding and
Then 06.
then 06 comes around out of nowhere. You're the 8th seed and you go all the way to the Stanley Cup final, Game 7 again. And then you have some lean years again. And then McDavid comes around, and then Draisaitl comes around, and team starts playing, and they get to a conference final, and they get to a couple of conference finals. They win a couple of conference finals. They get to the Stanley Cup, and then they lose the Stanley Cup. I've seen a lot of people, friends of mine on Facebook, Oiler fans that aren't friends, but you see
You're
them
in groups, Facebook groups,
and they're just like, you know what, it was terribly disappointing, but I'm a lifer.
Yeah,
and I'm a lifer too. I'm a lifer. When Gretzky was traded, there was a lot of people, including a certain uncle of yours, who
LA.
who went and started cheering for LA. I'm an Oiler for life. And Carson, you and I have talked about this years and years and years ago. And when the Oilers were bad and the Penguins were good, you said, well, you got to take the good with the bad, and you have to ride.
Now
with
roles
your
are
team.
reversed.
Yeah, now you got to ride with your team, whether they win the Stanley Cup back to back or 3 times, like your Penguins have done since you've been watching them, or the Oilers get to the Stanley Cup finals 2 years in a row and lose it. You stay with your team, but that doesn't mean that the disappointment in certain aspects of the game. And here's what I think. When you take a look at the Edmonton Oilers as a team, not just tonight's game, not just the Stanley Cup final, not just, slow start to the last couple of seasons, but goaltending is so important in this league now. It used to not be that important in the 80s, 70s, 80s.
Yeah,
you used to have a very small group of elite goaltenders in the 70s and the 80s. But goaltending is so important now. And for the last 2 years, between the 2 different general managers that the Oilers have had, Holland and Bowman have not done a thing about getting an elite goaltender between the pipes. Stuart Skinner should not be an Edmonton Oiler again. He has proven that he's a mediocre, like I said in our text, he's a mediocre goaltender who could be a backup somewhere and be a okay backup. Calvin Pickard, I think, is one of the better backups.
He should be a backup next year for them.
He should be the backup for the Oilers, but the Oilers have to do whatever they can.
Yeah.
Whether it's in free agency, whether it's through trades, get that elite goaltender, Ottinger type guy, Bob type guy.
They missed the mark on that.
Vasilevsky type guy. You're not going to get those guys, but you got to get somebody that when you put them in the pipes, you've got a decent shot of going back to the Stanley Cup and winning. Like getting back to the Stanley Cup 3 years in a row is going to be a very hard task for the Edmonton Oilers. Because like you said, just getting out of the Pacific Division, you got to deal with the Kings and Vegas.
Yeah.
In the Central Division, you got to deal with a Winnipeg team who probably is going to be a whole lot more focused. Dallas always is going to be there, and with the changes that they made, Colorado, you get some young up-and-comers like St. Louis. Anaheim's going to be good in a couple of years. It's going to be harder and harder and harder to get out of the West. So with the Oilers, Florida was too much for them. Florida is definitely the elite team in the NHL. They were like the Lightning the last few years.
I think that this might be the best hockey team I've seen.
Yeah.
Honestly, as being a fan, as much as my Penguin teams, I loved how good but this Florida team, I think, is just something else to watch. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just incredible. I mean, the way they play, they're so responsible. You hardly see them make any mistakes.
Yeah.
It seems like when somebody's out of position, somebody's got their back. Like how many times I saw Seth Jones kind of maybe a bit too high up, pinching up, and then Reinhardt's right behind him, picking him up,
Yeah.
like right there. You don't see that very much. So very impressive.
Yeah. And so some other stuff that I've seen throughout the playoffs, throughout the last few years with the Oilers. I know Evan Bouchard is up for a big contract, but I don't know if the Oilers want to spend money on that. I think they need to take the money and put that towards a goaltender. They need to do whatever. Evander Kane shouldn't be back.
I think that you can ride with Ekholm. And getting somebody else on defense. Wallman's proven to be a great fit.
Yeah,
he's somebody you want to keep. I think that you might. Is Bush's deal up this year or next year? Do you know?
I think it's up. I think he's a free agent now. I think he's. Okay. I think he's a free agent now.
I mean, you might just bite the bullet and let him go because you can get all the point scoring from the defense, but you can get somebody that can be just pretty okay on the like. I look at. I know. They just won, but Florida, okay, like Seth Jones, Gustav Forsling, they are not like, okay, number one offensive defensemen, but they're good enough for what it needs to be. And defensively, they're really good. How many times have you seen this series, Forsling on the ice, taking the puck back when he's out of, like, way gone, he still gets it.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think you might just eat that one up and just focus on goaltending because you've got a great defenseman in Ekholm around there.
Right.
But I agree with Evander Kane. I agree with your comment on Kane.
Evander Kane's got to go. I think, Corey Perry's going to come around for another year, which I think is good because I think he still is that leader presence that you need on the team. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins may be on the bubble to be, if you're looking for a goaltender and you need a little trade bait, Nuge may be on the bubble. He's the oldest tenured Oiler. Now, of course, you mentioned it, and everybody's going to be talking about it. What about Connor McDavid? Connor's been in Edmonton now for 10 years. His contract is up after next season. He'll be a free agent after 25-26. But, much like Draisaitl, they were hoping to get him kind of wrapped up before they had to do all that. Does Connor McDavid go? I hate to say this, but I think he is going to go because unless the Oilers can do something about their goaltending, do something about the depth. If they don't do anything
he's going to be
in this offseason, he's going to look at that as saying, well, they're not doing whatever they can to help this team win. I'm going to go to Chicago. I'm going to go to some other team.
I told you, I think I said the other day, San Jose would be an interesting one if he
some other team who is young, still a couple of years away, but a guy like McDavid on there. And I don't want to see Connor McDavid. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to see Connor McDavid leave.
It'd be a repeat of Gretz again.
It'd be a repeat of Gretzky, but I don't want to see him go. Like you've got Leon Draisaitl wrapped up for the next 8 years. His new contract starts
this year,
this coming year. You've got literally next year to try and do this again.
Not even the whole year. I mean, they're going to be obviously grieving this loss for a little bit, probably a few days, but they're going to have to start talking about that because if he has any inclination he wants to leave, they're going to have to start talking to other teams because you have to get something for him. You can't just lose him for nothing.
Just let him go.
No.
No. As much as the Gretzky trade was shocking, that was just about money. That wasn't about, and Gretzky he could have signed and stayed an Oiler for life. He was going to sign and stay an Oiler for life until he heard some stuff from, at the time, owner Peter Pocklington that he was on the trading block because Pocklington needed money. So that was that deal. But this is something that if the Oilers management can't do something productive with free agency or trades to show him we're serious and get yourself an elite goaltender, get yourself a better kind of bottom six guys, kind of match here what the Florida Panthers are doing. they may be the second shocking trade in Edmonton Oilers history.
He has the right. Honestly, he has the right to go where he wants.
Yep.
He does. He's the best player in the world right now. There's not a doubt. He definitely has the right to choose where he wants to go play. Not a doubt. So the Oilers are in a snafu, in my opinion. So the salary cap is going to increase this year, but they kind of, I don't want to say in a panic decision, but they had to lock Draisaitl up to get a chance for keeping McDavid.
Mm-hmm.
And Draisaitl got a lot of money. He's definitely a good player. I honestly feel like 14 million was a bit of an overpay, but that's just my opinion. Now, I mentioned it. This is going to have a big implication on it. Mitch Marner is going to sign this offseason somewhere else, and not in Toronto. It's already been confirmed. Nowhere, you don't know where he's going to go, but if he gets Draisaitl's worth or more, McDavid's definitely going to be getting 17, 18 million. So, as management, you have two guys that would be potentially taking up a third of your salary cap, not including the depth guys, second line through fourth, defensive pairs. Obviously, even the extras that are going to be playing in the AHL, you have to sign. It might not be worth it. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but it's proven that that's not going to win this team the Stanley Cup. And he's definitely worth a lot, where the Oilers could get a lot of pieces for him if they trade him.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely going to be a conversation that's going to be had for a while. This is not going to be a quick in and out. It's going to take months, but they're going to have to talk about this. And ultimately, Connor McDavid's going to have to envision where else he could picture himself going, because Draisaitl had to do it. He said he wanted to go to Boston.
Mm-hmm.
That was the big story, is that he wanted to go and play in Boston if he was going to go anywhere else. And it didn't end up happening.
Right.
McDavid might have to threaten, I'm going to go. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to win. And I can't blame him. He's been there for 10 years. And, he's an elite player, but there's one thing that's just keeping him out of that top tier group, and that's because he hasn't won.
Yeah.
And he has to think about where he has a good chance. I think the Oilers do give him a good chance, but I think until they fix the issues, like you said, they need to get goaltending, they need scoring depth. He might want to leave. Now, if you look at this team, who do you want gone this off season if you had it your way?
If I was a GM?
Yes.
Well, Evander Kane, Stuart Skinner. I think you say goodbye to those guys. Evan Bouchard. I think Evan Bouchard's he's just so inconsistent. He showed it tonight. His defensive play, he sees lazy. He may score a bunch. He may be one of the top defensive goal scorers in the league.
Yeah.
But those three guys are at the top of my list of guys who should not be back with the Oilers next year if they want. And I don't know who's out there, who's going to be out there goaltender-wise, but you look around the league and you've got to get yourself an elite goaltender if you want
a chance.
And to prove that to Connor McDavid that we are going to do something to shore the team up, because this is 2 years in a row now that they've stuck with Stu Skinner, and he is just not that guy. And he needs to him. And Evander Kane just did, like you said, more harm than good in the finals. You say goodbye to him. You say goodbye to Evan Bouchard. There's some of the other guys on the bottom that maybe you take a look at as being part of a trade deal. Janmark maybe is one of those guys. Arvidsson is another one of those guys. I think Jeff Skinner. That really didn't work out. So those are the guys who you could set up trade bait, and maybe you get a guy like Jordan Binghamton. I don't know how happy he is in St. Louis.
Well, and at the same time, as long as McDavid's there, who doesn't want to go play in there in Edmonton? But yeah, you have to show to Connor we're serious about this, because if you keep the things the same way, I hate to say it, but it's part of me, I just don't trust Stan Bowman on this. I think I think it's gonna be a repeat. That's just like, okay, well, that's your choice. You can go somewhere else. Fine by us.
When they did this, the Bowman as a GM, we talked about it when it first happened, and we both agreed it was the worst, probably general manager move they could have made. But anyways, that's kind of like how I look at this team. You always do this at the end of the Stanley Cup Finals. Well, what are these? What is this? What's the losing team going to look like? What do they have to do? It's going to if people think it's going to be easy for the Oilers to get back to the Stanley Cup Final, it ain't. Like I gave you the rundown of the Western Conference teams that they're going to have.
It's going to be hard.
It's going to be hard. But we're going to come back in October. It'll be another hockey season. Just got to get through a few more months. Got to get through your sister's wedding, and we'll be back with the podcast. And on a brighter note, of course, the podcast has been a dream of ours for a few years. And we would be going. I think we did what is it? 5 years in a row. We go up to Dallas for like the Father's Day.
This will be
Father-son trip.
Maybe four.
Was this 4 years? Okay, 4 years that we've been going up to Dallas, and we would talk hockey. Literally, folks, it's
the whole time.
A 4-hour drive from here to Dallas. We talk hockey the whole time, and we'd have scenarios. What would you do if you were the GM of this team and this team and this team? And then we just decided last year, late as the season started, let's do a podcast, and it was very, very rudimentary. It was on a phone to start, and we've come to where we are now with this great graphics and stuff like that. But doing a podcast with my son is always, as a dad's dad, you just want to do stuff with your kids. And Carson and I have this bond, not only father and son, but this bond of hockey and being passionate about it. And I hope that it shows through how much we both love the game. And it's unique that a father and son can be able to do stuff like this.
Yeah, and it really is.
It's now, you look at Stanley Cup Finals are over. We're going to be off really till
we'll probably do something in September for free agency because that's going to pick up.
We'll preview the season and all that kind of stuff. But I want to thank you for making, because it's like I'm proud because I've said it for years. You're the best hockey analyst that I've heard, and I've heard the best television, radio. I've heard the best. I've seen the best, and you are the best of the best as far as a hockey analyst is concerned. When we come back to the Best Boys Center Ice podcast in October, it'll be the Penguins, where we've always hoped. We got a Penguins final. Yeah, that would be very interesting. But I want to just thank you for everything that you do. You've done such an amazing job this year with the graphics. We've come a long way.
Yes, we have.
And who knows? We may evolutionize or keep the evolution of.
We're ever changing. We're ever changing every season.
You're going to see a lot more of us. I think as far as what we do here. Yeah. Thanks to StreamYard for being able to do this, and all the other great people at TSN, and because that's where Carson got all the great stats from every night. The intro to the show, it's such a great intro. Carson did all that, and it's sad because
it's over.
We do this. We did this every night for 2 months, pretty much. With the Stanley Cup playoffs, and it's been a fun run. We're going to take a break, just like the players do. We're not going to free agency. We're not getting anybody new, so we'll be back intact with everything. NHL, Pittsburgh Penguins, Edmonton Oilers. Our teams are our teams. We're both lifers with our teams. We both like the other guys' teams.
Yeah.
And we all kind of agree that Dallas is probably one of our.
They're close, right behind.
Right behind. So thank you, Carson. I love you very much. And
hey, hold on. What were you going to say? Go ahead.
Thank you, Carson. I love you very much, and I'm so proud to be doing this podcast with you.
Yep, me too. It's been a blast. Great season once again. We'll be back again. Free agency. Wrap up probably in September. We'll probably do some little stuff during the summer, if contract signings, obviously.
If we have something big happen, we'll definitely come on and do a show about it.
But it was another fun season. We'll be back for season 3. Again, Florida Panthers win the Stanley Cup again this year, so we'll see next year what that holds. But I think, in my opinion, there's only one way for us to end this show, and I'm going to go ahead and do the honors for you.
Okay.
I'm
All
going to switch
right.
things up. To end the 2024-25 season for the last time for a little bit, in the meantime, and in between time, everybody have a great hockey night.
After a year, I got him to say it.